Hey folks, it's Bud here at SOPHA, here to talk to you about how to clean your DSLR camera. That's right, your camera gets dirty. It turns out that's kind of important to be able to clean it. Now, we do clean cameras here at SOPHA, but this is not a sales pitch. But let's start with the important part. First, make sure the area where you're doing this is clean. So this is not the time to have, oh, I don't know, that linty cotton tablecloth. We need a nice, clean, good to go surface. The second thing I do is I make sure I wipe the camera down real quick. That doesn't have to be elaborate. It could be a paper towel, could be anything. I've done that before. And then the next thing, and I'm jumping ahead to the DSLR sensor cleaning part, we want to make sure the camera battery is fully charged, not even one notch down, because neither Canon nor Nikon will allow you to lock the mirror up for cleaning if that battery is not fully charged. So the time to get that squared away is right up front, obviously. So I gather all the materials I need. And the first thing I do is I just wipe down the outside of the camera. Now you say I just did that. Well, I do it again with one of these reusable lens cleaning cloths. Microfiber cloths. They come sometimes with the sale of a pair of sunglasses. This one's from Sigma. Thank you, Sigma. You gave it to me for free. No complaints. But I clean the camera down. And this is a backup camera. This is a D300 because we're using all the other cameras to shoot this video. Throwing that out there. And these cloths are nice in that they're reusable. I just run them through the wash machine, but don't run them through the dryer. This big microfiber cloth will turn out the size of an eye patch if you do. And I'm kind of done with that for the moment. And then I just blow off using a blower. I use these inexpensive ones I get from dealextreme.com, but you can get the more expensive $30 ones if you want from your local camera store. And I just blow off, especially around where the lens mount is before I take that cap off. And if there's any gunk inside the battery drawer, I hit that early on. So just blow that air out. Perfect. Awesome. Good to go. Then the very first thing I'm going to do next is I'm going to go to some cleaning pads, and I use PEC pads. These things are kind of awesome, PEC pads. They're disposable versions of these, and that's kind of nice. And I like that because I'm about ready to get this kind of ucky. It's hard to take one of these out at a time. There, you can see that, one of those, awesome. And I'm going to use a little Eclipse cleaning. Now, it's meant for the optics, but we can use it on anything. It's just methyl alcohol, so you don't want to leave that around where the little kids can get at it because we don't want them to do that. I clean the contacts, I clean the screens, and in general, I give it a quick wipe down. You're saying, Bud, you just wiped down the exterior of this camera 3 times. Well, because it really does matter when you start exposing the camera's sensor, it really does matter a lot that you're not adding any more dust in there. And honestly, this camera was pretty darn clean to begin with. Now I hit the little grooves and crevices with a Q-tip. Now some folks go, don't ever use a Q-tip to clean your camera. And I think that's good advice for the inside of a camera. We don't want to use a Q-tip on the inside of the camera. I always get up here where the hot shoe is. There's always some uck in there to get out, around in all those little crevices that I couldn't just get with that bigger cloth. All those little spots. And you can see this doesn't necessarily take a ton of time. Can you use a Q-tip on the viewfinder? You absolutely can. You won't hurt a thing. I don't use the plastic Q-tips. I use the cottony, the papery ones, just in case they were scratching, but they don't. I go all the way around that. Notice I haven't even opened up that lens mount yet. And then I do pop the flash up and get in there. I happen to know that I cleaned this camera not even a few days ago, so it was already pretty darn clean. You can see it's already kind of ucky. We're going to make that go away. Look at that. Awesome. And now I get to think about the inside of the camera. Now I know that this sensor is actually pretty dirty. I'm going to turn the camera on, but before I go into the sensor, I have to clean the mirror box. First thing I do is I turn the camera upside down. Notice the shutter is not open. The shutter is not open now. I'm going to point air straight up into the camera, but not so far that this tip goes inside the camera itself. And I'm going to just blow some air in there. We're going to fast forward through this part. It seemed like it took a long time to do that. You're right. And it's because it really does matter. Excellent. And now that I'm done with that, I'm going to look inside the mirror box, and I'm going to use the light that's attached to my sensor scope. And this allows me to see the camera sensor, but right now I'm just using the light so I can see on the mirror and see how dirty it is. And you know what? There's a bunch of stuff in the bottom of the mirror box. Now, I don't use Q-tips inside the camera. Instead, I started using these things called chamber swabs from Dust Patrol, thedustpatrol.com. I like them because they're disposable and they don't leave any fibers behind. And I actually don't use the Eclipse on this I'm just right in the bottom of the mirror box. I'm pulling out any dust, usually right along that bottom edge. And I'm doing very, very carefully to not put this any place it doesn't belong. And when I've done that, I know that's covered in dust. That's gone, right? And I'm actually going to be using a second one, and I'm going to put the tiniest drop, right? The tiniest drop, and I just wick that right on there. It's barely a drop of fluid, and I'm going to clean the mirror, okay? And I'm going to go back and forth in a slight swabbing motion, back and forth on the mirror. All right, and again, notice I used a brand new swab for this. That's kind of important. All right across the swab. All right, right across the mirror, rather. All right, there we go. I'm going to rotate that so I have a nice clean surface touching it. And now that mirror is dainty fresh. Awesome. We'll lose that. So now I have to think about cleaning the sensor itself. Okay. Actually, before I do, let's give a quick peek back inside on the mirror. And that looks like it came right out of the factory, honestly. There's one little piece of dust in there. I'm just going to blow that out. And that's the advantage of that sensor scope. Now, there's tons of them out there, the little magnifying lighted things for sensors. And they do well to help you see inside the chamber as well. And that helps you catch that errant dust. And I just put my eye right down to it. Oh, look at that. Sparkling fresh. Awesome. So now I'm going to clean the sensor. And to do this, I'm going to go into the menus where it says Clean Image Sensor, and then it says Lock Mirror Up for Cleaning. And you click OK. Of course, your camera manufacturer may be slightly different. And you press the shutter. And that's just locked the mirror up. And I'm now looking at the sensor. Now, I'm not going to be able to talk while I lean over the camera because I don't want any risk that I cough into this or whatnot. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look in and see where we're at. Okay? But before I do, quick little blast of dust off camera here to make sure. I put that right down on. And it doesn't look like the surface of the moon, but it's pretty dirty. So the first thing I'm going to do is turn it upside down, and I'm going to blow some air in. Fast forward through this too, I bet. Now, for most folks, this is probably where you're going to stop, because most folks don't want to touch their camera sensor. I, however, have done this many times, hundreds and hundreds of times, and you may not want to do that. So you can pay me to do it, or someone else, or send it off to Nikon or Canon, and they'll do an awesome job, right? However, if you choose to do this, you have two methods. You can use the blow air in it method, that's fine, or you can move on to the dry method, which is using a brush. You can't use any old brush. There are a couple out there, but for the dry method, I use the Dust Patrol's little brush. Now, I have two. I use one for the chamber sometimes, and I use the other for sensor, and I've labeled them so I don't get them reversed. And I never touch the end of this, ever, ever, ever. Never touch the end of it. And that's very important. See, it's a very simple brush. I'm not going to touch it, but it's very, very fine fibers. It's very, very soft, and I wouldn't use anything else but an actual sensor brush for the sensor itself. Now, before I start, I'm going to blow a little air across this, and you don't have to go nuts, but it's enough air to put a little static electricity on there. Just a little bit, just a little bit. And that little bit of static electricity is going to catch any dust that's on there. And all I did was mow the lawn. I went from across, flipped the brush over, went across again. I just covered the whole sensor. Now, when I go to set this down, I'm going to set it down on something like that so that it doesn't touch the table and pick up any dust, okay? And I'm going to stop and look inside again. Now, it's pretty rare you get it all in the first try, but I did. So I turned the camera off to close the shutter up and get that sensor protected. I got all the dust on the first swipe. Honestly, that never happens. Usually I have to go for another swipe. Now, because this is a demo, I'm going to show you how to do the wet method. That was the dry method. Let's show you the wet method. Before I do it, I'm going to put this brush away. Blow the dust off. We'll need that in a minute. I'm going to put it back in its protective little tube, cover it up, and awesome. Now, the actual wet method, you need two things. You need this Eclipse cleaning fluid. You saw that, Eclipse cleaning fluid. And again, methyl alcohol, 100%, right? And the sensor swabs. Now, the sensor swabs, I should warn you, they go about $5 a whack, and these are in boxes of 12, so you can imagine this is an expensive box of sensor swabs. They make individuals now, but you know, that works. And the sensor swab comes individually wrapped, just like this, individually wrapped, and you want to keep them clean. All right? So what we're going to do is we're going to tear that open on the non-swab end of it. Now, when most folks see this for the first time, they think, oh, this is just a little plastic paddle, right, with a PEC pad on the end. In fact, it's not. This is far, far finer, and honestly, a much nicer material. It's actually held in place with a little rubber band. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 1 drop, well, that was 2, but pretend, 1 drop of cleaning fluid to it. And I'm going to let that sit for a second. I'm going to go back into the menu, lock mirror up for cleaning, start. Menu, lock mirror up for cleaning. There we go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mow the lawn again like this across, turn it over, go back again. That's it. And that was that. I set that down. Look at it. And obviously it's clean. It was clean when I started. But there we go. There we go. Now, the first thing I do, I actually save these to clean with inside the chamber, or maybe if I have to get up on the, not the mirror, but the part above that, the finder screen, which you want to be very careful. If you do that, if you hit one of the spring clips that's holding the finder screen, the prism part up on top, it will release. And I should warn you, that's very difficult to put back in place without some very specialized little plastic tweezers. It's actually real hard to do. So be very careful if you swab up inside. But that's why I save them, because this is perfectly clean for a chamber purpose, but it's not clean to ever use again on the sensor. These are one-time use, folks. And there you have it. So I just add that we have other things like these little lens pen brushes, which are good for the exterior of the camera, but not for the internals whatsoever, okay? There you go. That's how to clean your DSLR camera from Bud at the SOPHA. If you have any questions or we can help you out, give us a call or an email. Thanks.